And a very special guest this morning on Absolutely Famous is a true legend of Canterbury and New Zealand Rugby League, the one and only Frank Endacott. Frank, thank you so much, mate, for being a guest on our website. It's a great honour for us, and I hope you're well over there in Christchurch.
Yeah, pleasure, John. Yeah, still here in Christchurch and well, mate. Touch wood.
Well, have you slowed down lately? I mean, you've been flat out all your life coaching league. You're a player agent for a long time as well. And have you decided to retire yet, or are you still going?
Well, that's an interesting question, John, because I'm 74 years old now, and I was coaching up until last year, first grade here in Christchurch. So at the end of last year, I just decided it was time to give it away. I've been in the game 66 years non-stop. When starting rugby league as a player as a 7-year-old, and I did something every year, either player, coaching, administration, player agent, the lot. So I decided at the end of last year to give it away and start doing something for myself. And what I've done, I've bought a share in 3 racehorses, and I must say I'm having a lot of fun with them.
Geez, you're in racehorse country there in Canterbury.
Well, I'm fortunate to have a very good, or have a share in a very good 2-year-old filly here with Mark Purden, a top trainer in New Zealand, and I've got 2 colts, yearling colts with Crandell Getty, who's one of the top trainers in New Zealand also. So, a little bit lucky.
A lot of fun that would be. Frank, you've had an amazing life journey, and well, in life no doubt too, but rugby league in particular. And it all started, I think, way back when you were a kid with was it the Shirley Rugby League team in Christchurch?
Yeah, that's right, actually. It was a new housing suburb, and we went back. Dad got a house there, a state house it was, and Mum and Dad in 1952. And I started playing league in 1955 for the Shirley Club. And my father and 3 or 4 other blokes started the club up. And it ended up a very strong club for junior football, junior rugby league. And I played there right through to the time I was 15. And, 3 of us out of that team, the club team, made the schoolboy Kiwis that played Australia. So, and after that, I ran out of teams there. They only went up to a certain age, so I had to join Addington, another club.
Yeah, well, of course, you had a long career with Addington, in the suburb I used to live down there in Spencer Street, just around the corner from where you used to train and play.
I remember it well, and I remember the dance at Spencer Street too, when I was a young fella. So, yeah, Gerald Street was the name of the park, and I was there for many years with Addington. Played about 10 years there, I suppose, and ended up coaching there also. And, I love that club, but of course it went through, and they've only got about 3 junior teams as I speak.
Yeah, it's tough, all right. And of course, you played for Hornby later on, did you?
Well, I finished the last 2 years playing for Hornby, first grade. Right at the end of my career, I was living out there. Even though I was with Addington, I was coaching a young team for Hornby, which one of my sons played in, Shane, and right through the grade from 10 to about 17. So I decided to do the last 2 years with Hornby and had a couple of good years with them, actually.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun playing club footy then, but you'd need your wits about you. She's pretty physical, the games I used to watch.
Look, John, to be quite honest with you, in those days it was brutal, and I mean brutal. There was something going on in every game, and it seemed to be a survival of the toughest in those days, and not the smartest. But thank goodness those days are gone, really, and players are more protected as I speak. But with the game today, they were tough games. You had to be tough to survive in them.
Yeah, well, I think, did you play standoff most of your career?
Well, I started off at standoff and then went to centre. I played a lot of first grade at centre, and then I ended up at lock forward and moved my way into the second row. And when I finished up at prop, I thought it was time to coach.
Yeah, that was a smart move, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, well, that was amazing. You took up coaching, and did you coach club rugby first before you went on to do the Canterbury side?
Well, I actually for Addington, and we won the grand final first year, actually, for the first time in history. And Addington were the oldest club in Canterbury, and over 100 years old, the club. So that was big. I coached there for 2 years, and then went to Hornby for 3 years, and then started off in the New Zealand system. Then I coached Canterbury for 5 years, and then went on to the Warriors after that and the Kiwis. So, yeah.
Well, your time with Canterbury, there was a highlight for you, I think, when Canterbury tipped over Auckland. It was, in those days, of course, Auckland dominated for years, didn't they? And you went up there and upset the apple cart.
Yeah, well, in those days, thinking about beating Auckland was a dream. I mean, I think the last coach to do it was Gary Clark, who won in Auckland in a close one, and it was great to see Auckland upended for once in their lives. But when I took over, I was reminded by the board that we hadn't beaten Auckland at home in 32 years. Well, it took 1 year, and we beat them at home, and then over the next 4 years, we had a draw and another 4 wins. So, they found it very hard to beat us. In fact, they couldn't beat us in the mid-90s, and it all came to a head in the national final when we played them, and they brought 8 players back from the UK. They were that serious about winning it. They had about 2/3 of the 3/4 of the Kiwi Test team, and I had a young team of players here that just would die for each other, to be honest. They were just like a family, and their only average age was about 20, 21, and we went out there and put 40 on them. And it was in a packed showgrounds here in Christchurch. They actually turned people away that day. We had so many in the ground. So it was that was one of the most memorable games that I'll ever remember. That was 1993.
Yeah, I wasn't at the game, but I remember reading about it and how excited everybody was, and yeah, that was a marvellous achievement. And then another big thrill for you, obviously, being involved with the Warriors when they started up, coaching the second team when John Money was in charge of the first team. That must have been a real buzz too, to be part of that.
Well, it was. It was huge, and that sort of came on board after that successful stint with the Canterbury side, and they signed a few Canterbury players on from that team, and they signed myself on as reserve grade coach and assistant to John Money. That was a real thrill because I had to move from Christchurch to Auckland, which I did, and I actually joined them in 1994, a year before the kick-off of the first game, to help put the club together, and it was an exciting time, and I'll never forget that first game, of course, that night with 30-odd thousand fans in the stadium when we played the Broncos, and I coached the reserve grade team that night and had players like Stacey Jones and Joe Wagner and Logan Swan and these fellas, all future first graders, but they were only young fellas at the time. And we bet the Brisbane Broncos in the first game, so it was a real good night, one I'll never forget.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, the first team had a great chance of beating them too. They had a good lead, didn't they? And they just got run down in the end.
Yeah, no, they did. You're right. They put up a very good go, and those Bronco teams, those teams that night, they were just stacked with internationals. So it was a good effort from both teams, and just a dash of luck in the first grade team could have won too.
Yeah, of course, the Warriors, they've had their years. They've had 2 or 3 good years where they've threatened to make the final, made the grand final. They've done that. They haven't won a title yet. Why is it so hard for the Warriors, Frank? What do you think? What do you think's the missing ingredient in latter years in particular? They haven't quite lived up to, well, certainly their fans' expectations.
Two things that I believe is development, or the lack of, and recruitment. I think the recruitment's been pretty average over the last few years, to be quite honest. And they're the 2 main reasons. I mean, I can remember when I was with the Warriors with John Money, we had a real good development system where we were getting the best players in New Zealand coming up to the Warriors. These days, they all go to the Australian clubs for some reason, because the players feel as though they get neglected down here from the Warriors. They haven't got a scouting system down here as such. But in those days, why we were becoming a real threat, because we had a very competitive first grade team. We had a super reserve grade team who made the grand final in our second year. against Cronulla. And we had a very, very good Colts team, which were made up of the best players around New Zealand at junior level. So we had those players coming through the system all the time. And when Super League came in, it was destroyed. Super League came in and made all the big comments about continuing on with reserve grade and with the Colts grade. And, of course, they abolished all that. And that's when the Warriors started declining.
Yeah, it's sad. Well, it's frustrating too because, it's obviously the NRL is obviously a fiercely tough, hard competition just to survive in. And as you say, any sort of deficiency in your setup is going to cost you. And as you've just said, that probably, I wasn't fully aware of that, so people will be interested to know that. It almost seems...
Yeah, I thought that was the downfall, John, at that time, because we had players coming through, understanding how tough the NRL was, and the reserve graders were getting blooded into first grade, and when John had to bring a player up, he knew they'd do the job for him, and it was working. It was working good. But then we had the big Super League war with the ARL, and that sort of really ruined the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, of course, after you finished with the Warriors, you went on to coach the Warriors after John left, and that would have been an enjoyable experience for you, coaching the first team as well?
Well, it was a great experience in '97 when John was flecked on, and I didn't really want to take them on under the circumstances because I had a lot of time for John, but it was just something that had to be done, and we were in 10th place at the time. There were 10 teams in that Super League competition that year, and we ended up in 7th. So we gained 3 places in a half a year. And in that year also, we played in the World Club Championship, and we ended up 3rd in that, getting knocked out by the Broncos in Brisbane. I think it was 18-12. We were playing some great rugby league at that time, and it was a pity we didn't make that final, but we ended up having a good year in '97.
Yeah, I remember it well. Especially remember that club final. And then, of course, once you left the Warriors, you had a wonderful journey over to England. You hooked up coaching the mighty Wigan Warriors, and you made the grand final there. What a huge thrill!
Yeah, well, that was interesting, because I just finished with the Warriors, and I was lying in bed asleep in one particular night, and I received a call from Maurice Lindsay, the Wigan chairman, and he asked me if I'd come over and coach Wigan for 1 year. He said that they were a really good team. He said that they weren't enjoying their rugby league, and he was going to sack the coach the following day, and he said, they were walking around looking at the ground all the time. No one was enjoying it. So he said, could you come over for 1 year and see if you can improve them? I said, I'll start swimming now. So we got on the plane, a few days later and went over there and took over. And the first thing I did was I said to Maurice Lindsay, mate, I want £20,000 to take the team to Ireland, to Dublin for the long weekend. I said, I want to do a training camp over there. But I didn't tell him. I told the players here at home. I just wanted to go over there and get to know the players. So we had 3 days on the Terps, and I really got to know every player well. Had time to sum them up over 3 days, and from that day on, they ended up just loving their rugby league. We won the championship. We had to beat the strong St Helens team in the last game at St Helens, and it's pretty hard to do in those days, still is today. And we beat them by 40. So we won the championship, and then they beat us in the grand final, believe it or not, in a close one. And I was lucky enough to get British Coach of the Year in that 1 year. So had a real successful year, and because of that, he offered me another 2 years. Unfortunately, I didn't survive the full 2 years. I was let go in the 10th round in 2001, the following year, because we lost a game to Salford, an away game, by 1 point, and that was enough.
Jesus, she's a fickle game, isn't it? The world of pro sport coaching, as many coaches have found out.
Yeah, Yeah, it all depends what side of the bed the chairman wakes up on that particular day, because after that they got beat. Wigan got beat a couple of times, believe it or not, by 60 and 70 points, and the coach survived. So yeah. Oh, the other thing was that particular day we lost our prop after 8 minutes, so we played the full game with 12 men also. So I thought it was a great effort, but he didn't think so.
No, no. And then you went on. You were with the Widnes Vikings for a while.
Yeah, that was interesting because I owned a pub here in Christchurch, and I received a call in the bar one night and said, "Look, we've got 5 games left, and we need to survive a relegation. Would you be interested in coming over?" Because they'd put the coach off, and I said, "Look, I'll ring you back in a couple of hours." And I looked at their game schedule as to who they had for the last 5 games, and to be honest, I didn't give them a bloody show. I thought they were gone, and but I saw it as a challenge, and I said to the wife, "Look out the pub, I'm off over there for 5 or 6 weeks." So went over there, and we played Huddersfield, who was in 4th place, one of the top 4 teams, and we beat them first up. And then the second game was against the top side, Wigan, my old team, and the papers were saying there'd be a 60-point win to Wigan here and all the rest. Well, we actually beat them. So we won 2 of the 5 games, which was good enough to get us in, and then the other 3 was only 1 or 2 points in the game. So they survived, and they gave me the key to the city. They were absolutely over the moon. But they said, "Look, will you come back next year?" And I didn't really want to, but I did, and it was just one of those years. I've never, personally, in my whole coaching career, never had a year like it for injury. That we went through 38 players and ended up playing guys just out of school against professionals, and they didn't finish last. They finished second to last. But it was the year that 2 teams got relegated for the only time ever to get the French team, Catalans, in. So it was really bad luck for Widnes, and they've never got back since. So they're playing in the Championship now, not in Super League.
No, and of course the pinnacle of your career, of course, coaching the Kiwis from '95 to 2000, it must have been a big thrill for you.
Oh, the biggest thrill of all. That's the top of the tree, the Kiwis, and to be with the Kiwis for 7 years was just unbelievable. It was a great experience with great people. I had good staff. I had great players. It was just an enjoyment every year. And I did give them 6 months' notice in the World Cup in 2000 that I was going to retire after the World Cup. And Gerald Ryan, the chairman of New Zealand Rugby League, actually offered me another 2 years. And I just sort of, I'd made my mind up, and it was too long, and they needed maybe a new voice. But I had a great record, 35 test matches with the Kiwis, and I think for a 66% winning ratio. So we only ever lost to one country in that period over 7 years, and that was Australia. And we were lucky enough to beat them on 3 occasions also.
Yeah, what a thrill to beat the Aussies. Gee, they're tough, aren't they? And yeah, what's it like in the dressing room after a Kiwi win over the Aussies? Because not many people would know.
One of the best feelings you would ever have in your lifetime. John, I remember when I was appointed Kiwi coach, I had a couple of board members tell me that you've only got to beat Australia once to be a successful Kiwi coach. And I always remember that. And when we beat them 3 years in a row, I felt very, very good. And in the dressing room afterward, the best test I was ever involved in the 35 was in 1998. It was one of the toughest test matches I've ever been part of. And we beat Australia. We were down at half-time. I think it was about 12-2. And that was one of the best Australian teams I've ever seen in my life. And we come back and beat them against the odds. And the feeling in that dressing room afterwards was just indescribable, really. And the floor was covered in blood. It looked like a slaughterhouse, but it was worth every drop of blood.
It's the Belfast Freezing Works.
Exactly like the Belfast Freezing Works, mate. You know what that was like?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, there's a bit of blood and guts there. No, they're tough men, aren't they? They're really tough bakers. I take my hat off to them. Anyone who plays top rugby league or any of the footy codes, there's not. You got to admire their courage as well as their skill.
at half time in that game, I looked around and I thought, man, we're battered because I only had one player on the bench. John Lomax was taken to hospital after 28 seconds of the match. So we played the whole match without John. And then Jared McCracken had stitches. Richie Barnett had a broken bone in his hand. Who else? There was someone else injured too. And they just kept going out there. They just put their bodies on it. That, to me, epitomised courage that night. Players like Quinton Pongier and Jared McCracken and these fellas, they just went out there, just put their bodies on the line, and we come out with one of the toughest wins I've ever seen.
Yeah, fantastic. Frank, the community game over in Australia, Rugby League, seems to be going pretty good, especially out in the regions, and still getting good crowds, especially at the the smaller stadiums for the NRL. What about New Zealand? How's Rugby League going there at grassroots?
Struggling, to be honest. The standard of rugby league and the numbers involved in the game are a lot worse off now than they were years ago. But that just seems to be a sign of the times. It's not just rugby league; it's all sports.
Yeah,
rugby
it is.
Union are experiencing the same, and I never miss a game of rugby league, either an English game or on TV or the NRL. I see every NRL game every week, and if I'm out somewhere, I'll tape it and watch it when I come home. And I think the standard of rugby league at the moment is exceptional, absolutely exceptional. I watched the State of Origin the other night. It was one of the fastest games I've ever seen in my life. The one thing about, they describe rugby league and rugby union and these sports, the one thing that rugby league has is the product. We've got the product. And, as a spectator sport, it's second to none. And some of these tries that are being scored now, especially by the wingers, they're exceptional. And I just love it. I love it. I love watching every minute of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. That Origin match the other night was the greatest game of any footy code I think I've ever seen. I can't remember a more exciting, a more brutal, a more skillful one.
The State of Origin?
Yeah, the State of Origin, the last one, the series decider.
Look, they really deserved. I wasn't going for one team or another, but I just thought that Queensland really deserved it. They showed a lot of energy, a lot of hunger. They wanted that win bad, and even a bit of the old Biff come back. It was just so good to see, wasn't it?
It was. It was brilliant. It was fantastic. Frank, you've been justifiably honoured for your services, your amazing services to rugby league and the New Zealand community in particular. If I just read out a few of them, there's more. 2006, you made an officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit and the New Year's Honours List. You're a life member of the New Zealand and the Canterbury Rugby Leagues. Lifetime Achievement Awards at the Canterbury Sports Awards. You're twice named Canterbury Coach of the Year at the Sir Richard Hadley Trust Awards. Do you sit back every now and think, geez, I'm pretty proud of what I've done?
To be honest, I am proud of what I've done, and to do something like that and enjoy every minute of it is a bonus. I always think, I put a lot of time, I put a lifetime into the sport, into rugby league, and I mean a lifetime. And but then I look at the people that have helped me. My wife Joan, who supported me all the way, the family, friends, the players have been fantastic. I've had a lot of support too, and it's not just all about me. It's about it's a team game, and it takes a lot of people to get the end result, not just one person. But yeah, I have had a lot of accolades, and I cherish those, and always look back. People can't take memories away from you, and I've got plenty of good memories of the game.
No, they certainly can't. Of course, you had your book published, Being Frank, in 2002. Is there another one possible?
Oh no! If I wrote another one since then, it would be a bestseller, but I wouldn't have any friends left. So I'll leave it at that. It was a good book. There's some good stories in that book, and I really enjoyed writing that book with John Coffey. It was a good time, and brought back a lot of memories of what happened in the past and where it all started from. So the books, they sold out very quick time.
Fantastic.
I know that Wigan, they'd do a reprint for Wigan. They wanted 5,000 more copies. So they were all sold over there in the first day or two. So, yeah, no, it was good. It was good. But I certainly wouldn't write another one.
No, they're a big effort, all right. I know from first-hand experience. And Frank, you've had. Thank you so much for being a guest on Absolutely Famous. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to talk to you. And also, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all rugby league people in thanking you for a fantastic contribution you've made to the sport and all the people who've helped along the way.
Oh, thank you, John. Yeah, I really appreciate that, mate. And, I think when you just touched on something there, John, that I think one of the most pleasurable things from coaching is to see some of these young fellas you've coached from an early age go through and play first grade and play at test level. I think that's the best thing about coaching is watching them succeed. And I've had plenty of those over the years. So, as I say, good memories, John, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. I much appreciate it. Go and enjoy the Canterbury sunshine. I hope it's nice and sunny over there in Christchurch.
No, it hasn't been, but it's not too bad today, mate. So, every day I wake up's a good day. So, yeah, I can't wait for the summer.
Good on you, Frank. Long may it continue. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, John. Take care.